Are you considering a move to Florida's beautiful Space Coast? With breathtaking beaches, a growing job market, and laid-back coastal vibe, it's no surprise that more people are calling this area home. In this episode, we'll help you navigate your relocation journey, covering everything from the best neighborhoods to lifestyle tips. And we're bringing in a special guest, a local real estate relocation expert who will share insider advice and help you find the perfect home that fits your needs and budget. Look, we got a lot of great content today, so make sure you stay to the end. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button down below. And if you've made it this far into this short part of the video, hit the like button. And from that, we'll move on. Hey, I'm here with Sherry Boswell from Denovo Realty. Sherry, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. So we brought you on because you're a relocation specialist, not just as a profession, but in your past and in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, so I am retired military. I'm also a military spouse, and so moved quite a bit before we called the Space Coast home for good. And so I've really enjoyed connecting with other folks who moved to the area because I've been able to live in Brevard County now for over 20 years.
Wow.
And so I raised 3 kids here, so I have a little bit of knowledge about the amenities, the locale, communities, and everything Brevard.
So when you said you're a military spouse and a military veteran, sorry, and so how many times? So your husband, both you and your husband served in the military, and then you went on a reserve basis?
Yes. So my husband was active duty. I was also on active duty when I met him. And I transitioned off of active duty into the reserves, both in the Air Force. And so then I kind of followed him around for a while until he chose to retire here on the Space Coast. And so we moved anywhere between 7, 8 times in the military. So it was very difficult to kind of navigate that. You realize very quickly when you get to a new location, like you have no emergency contact because you know no one. So
well, this is perfect because, talking about relocation, you've experienced both sides of it from going through it yourself and helping people go through it. So, in that, what's the biggest challenge in a relocation, would you say?
I think for a lot of people, it's just not having any idea about the locality, how the proximity of the grocery store, parks, schools, how far is that property going to be from their work? What's their commute time going to be? So I see those questions being asked a lot. Yeah,
not knowing an area, you might think it looks real close on a map, but the way you get there, the traffic you encounter might tell a different story.
Yeah, and it depends on who you are. If you're a retiree coming here, your needs are going to be a lot different than if you were moving here for a job relocation.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of key factors should I or someone else consider when choosing the perfect location for their dream home?
One of the things I try to emphasize when I'm onboarding clients is where you live, work, and play is going to be really important when you look at a house. It's not just going to be the 4 walls and the price point. Sometimes it's going to be what's your commute look like, proximity to the school, if you're going to be taking your kids to school, or are you on a bus, or are you going to have to drive your child? Because there are some schools that if you live within 2 miles of that school, you're going to have to drop them off or take a golf cart in the area.
That's right, golf cart. Yeah.
So a lot of people are concerned about the safety, the crime, so they'll often ask me about, is this a safe neighborhood? Well, I always point them to the local sheriff's department websites where they can, find out more information about that. Also, I think for folks that are moving here as a veteran and they choose to buy, they're looking on the backside when they have to sell in a few years. If they get orders to move, they're looking at this resellability, the area as well. So I think that's something that's very important when people are moving here. Also, is it still under construction? Is it still growing? Are they going to have to live through a construction zone while they're moving into their property? Also, what do they like to do? Are they surfers? Do they like to hike? What is their lifestyle preferences? What are their hobbies? So I'm always going through a lot of information like that. And all that plays a factor in finding the best home for them.
So you really got to get to know someone to understand what their needs are there. The first thing is location, right? You mentioned proximity to work and all these things. So location plays a huge role.
Absolutely.
Plays a big role.
You can change the wall color. You can put in a nice deck in the backyard. You can even add a pool sometimes, but you can't change the location.
Sure. So how can I research? You mentioned it briefly, but how can I research and evaluate neighborhoods when relocating? Because I think there's some rules you have to follow when you speak to people about this kind of thing.
Yes, you know, as a real estate agent, we have to abide by fair housing rules always. And so I can't, somebody constantly will say, is this a safe area?
Right.
What is safe to you? Everybody has a different definition of that. So I always point them to some great websites. You can go and do some research in that area. There's some great resources for that. A lot of people are doing a little home visit. They'll do a little house hunting trip. So they'll come in for a weekend. And I do what's called a windshield tour, which is what we used to do in the military. We used to drive our generals around. And we'll do a good survey of the area of maybe the possible locations where they'd like to live in. If they are local and they're just moving from maybe a different part of Florida, they'll come over. I say, drive neighborhoods. Go drive the neighborhood if you have the opportunity to. See what you like. See if you can envision yourself living there. There are some great school resources. You can find out about the ratings for the schools, because as a real estate expert, that's what I try to be an expert in. Just like I try to leave the lending to Morgan Financial.
Thank you.
Because they do a great job of serving my clients very well. I'm not the numbers gal. I'm going to give you great information on finding a great property. Just like schools, I'm not a school expert. So I want to make sure I give them the best resources so that they can do their own research and then make a really good informed decision on where they want to be.
Yeah, everyone's got an opinion, but you're giving them the location of the facts and data where they can research it and formulate their own opinion.
Absolutely. Case in point, so I'm working with some veterans who are relocating here. They have kids in high school. It's a very big deal. They're going off to college soon. This particular couple has a daughter who is playing a sport that is unique, and they wanted to make sure they found a high school that had this program for their daughter, because she's being looked at by colleges, D1 schools, and so she wanted to make sure that her daughter had the last 2 years at a school where she could play that sport. And that's really what was driving one of the main factors in their looking for a home here in Brevard County. So that was kind of unique, and I think it is something that when you're moving to this area, you have to look at what you're wanting, not only if you have children or for your job.
Yeah, everyone seems to have a unique need, and those can vary widely to some you've probably never heard of. And you get one, you're like, oh, okay, I get it. They have this need.
Absolutely.
So what are some common mistakes people make when relocating, and how would you suggest avoiding them?
Mistakes. I think not having access to all your paperwork.
Ooh.
People don't realize that when you are looking from far away, that we have to do a lot of things electronically. In other words, like getting your pre-approval.
Sure.
We have to have that in order to put in an offer for any property. We can't just, verbally call up the agent and say, we'll give you,
yeah, we're good for
chickens for that.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
Although maybe eggs right now.
Maybe eggs right now we could get away with that. But I think that's important, because when people are moving, having access to that, they're going to need that on the lending side. They're going to need that as when they're moving. So know where your paperwork is, because that's important. And we're going to need that. And your lender's going to need that. Prior to putting in an offer, especially from far away. I
love that you said having their paperwork in order. It makes me as a lender, makes me feel really, really, really good because it's so important. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, that's packed away. I'm like, well, but now we have digital means to get these things, but still some of it you can't pack away. I mean, sometimes they might have a physical copy of their DD-214, a physical copy. And if they pack that away, yeah, we could probably pull it ourselves, but it'd be real nice to have that ready, handily available to give to whichever lender you choose. So what role does a real estate agent play in helping me find a home that fits, my needs, my lifestyle? Well, first of all, I think as a real estate agent, we're going to ask really good questions. Finding that agent, and I always recommend people interview one or two, because you never know if one person's going to have, you're going to vibe with them, or you're going to have commonalities with them, or the information, or
background that they're specifically going to need. So I'm always, because there's a lot of great real estate agents in Brevard County, and I work with a lot of them. And so just interview a couple and find out, which one's going to work for you. Also, I think as a real estate agent, I have access to some of the best resources. So I pride myself on being able, if I don't know, I know someone who can. And that's working with the best lenders, pointing them towards those first steps, understanding how to onboard them effectively so that I can best serve them. So having a good real estate agent is going to be able to give you, again, those resources. They're going to point you in the right direction. They're going to have knowledge of the area. They're going to have access to some of the best resources to share. And also, we're going to be the ones that are going to be boots on the ground, because a lot of people are doing this from a different state. And whether they can make a house hunting trip or not, we're going to be going and doing virtual tours. We're going to be going and driving the neighborhood and sticking the phone out and saying, this is what this street looks like. And we're going to be doing all those kinds of things. So choosing a real estate agent that's willing to kind of go above and beyond is really going to be one of those great things for someone who's moving here.
The resources piece is key. I had a out-of-area realtor who happens to be a friend of mine come from Orlando, and he's helping a client buy a waterfront property. And he's like, do you have a good dock inspector? And I said, I actually have a couple, but one in particular, very good dock inspector that I shared with him. But local agents have those. They know where to go to for inspectors, lenders, insurance companies, and things like that. So local knowledge is unbelievably important. So what are some of the, in Brevard, you said you've moved a fair amount of times, but you've been here for a good bit of time. What are some up and coming areas of Brevard or things like that? What are you seeing locally?
So right now, Viera West is booming. It's where I've lived in Viera for over 20 years now, and it's just crazy to see how it's evolved and grown, and the access to different, Publix is out there now. There's a lot of different. So there's more still coming in Viera West. So it's not done yet. A lot of people will say, oh, I think Viera is all built out. No.
Not even close.
We're about 44% built out from what the Viera company puts out. So Titusville is really becoming, there's some really great areas, especially new construction. As the space industry grows here on the Brevard and on the Brevard coast, we're seeing more and more people want to be closer. So Merritt Island and Titusville seeing some great options in neighborhoods that are close to the river, with great access to watching all the launches. So that's been one to watch. Palm Bay still has a lot going on along the St. John's Heritage Parkway. There's still a lot of different new builds happening in those communities with Lennar and D.R. Horton, lots of other scattered builds in Palm Bay, especially if you don't want to be in a HOA neighborhood. So there is still lots of opportunity, both in the south part of the county, the central, and the north part. Yeah, good. Our county has been booming, and we've seen I think you said your husband came here to work on the space shuttle program. So with the Challenger program came to an end, what was that, 2014 or way before that? Yeah, I think it was right around 2010? 08. Was it 08? 08 and 10. I remember the last shuttle that went, got piggybacked on the 747 or whatever the jet. Flew up the coast. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. That was really, really cool. I remember watching that from the beach. But I digress. So going back, that whole Titusville area, a lot of the people we saw that were working on the space programs, they would move to Viera, right? A lot of them moved to Viera because it's a 30-minute commute. But we're seeing that Titusville, Mims, St. John's, Port St. John's, that area started to get revitalized. It is, and a lot of people, it all depends on what you want. We have a lot of their non-HOA or larger lots. Right. If you're looking for something like that, that's what's appealing in those areas. We're seeing, Port St. John, you get a little bit more property. You're not in an HOA. If you have a side business and you have a big work truck and you have toys and things like that. So a lot of people, if you have a boat, so you're seeing those areas start to grow because they want a little bit of elbow room. Right. Good. Any other parting thoughts about relocation or your experiences with it? I think working with a real estate agent is going to be your best bet because they're going to be boots on the ground for you. They're going to give you the best information. They're going to have access to the locale, and finding somebody who matches what you're desired result will be, they can give you all the information, the resources, connect you with the right people, and ask the right questions, because this is not an overnight process. I have often worked with folks for up to a couple of years before they move to this area. And just recently, I helped a couple from Homestead. He got off of active duty. He was a commander down there, and they wanted to move to this area specifically for their children and the access to education.
Wow.
So having a real estate agent who has the knowledge and the local expert in their community can be greatly beneficial for that person who's relocating here.
Absolutely. That local knowledge is so important. So important. Well, good. Well, thank you very much for watching today. If you got some value out of this, please hit the like button, subscribe, share, do all those things, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Thanks, Sherry, for joining us today.